Hi everyone, it's Rio CloudSync. In today's session, we'll look at preventing Copilot from processing content using data loss prevention policies and sensitivity labels. This is a recently new capability announced at Microsoft Ignite only a couple of weeks back, which is currently in public preview. And in today's session, I'm going to take you through the setup alongside the configuration. And if you'd like to follow on in today's video, you'll need to access the Microsoft Purview console via purview.microsoft.com. First up, you will need to assign your user account the applicable role-based access control from a least privileged access perspective, which will be the information protection role group. And the way we go about that, where we see the ribbon and where we see the settings cog at the top right, we want to select, and we want to click roles and scopes. On the left-hand service pane, where we see the org-wide settings, we want to navigate to roles groups, and where we see the search bar, we want to type in information protection. This should list 5 role groups. Anything other than the reader role group should suffice, but from a zero trust methodology perspective and least privileged access, you may want to assign your user account the information protection administrator. Next up, we need to create the DLP policy, and the data loss prevention policies we're going to create are highly reliant on you having existing sensitivity labels configured within information protection. Because of course, we're trying to stop Copilot from processing data it shouldn't have access to via applying a sensitivity label. So, the way we access data loss prevention is through the solution card on the left-hand side or via the home page. And here is where you'll see data loss prevention. This will take you to the dashboard or the health and advisory pane, where we can see a whole load of analytics and telemetry around your users' behavior within your organization. However, on the left-hand side where we see policies, this is where we would create the policy and enact the particular access controls. So, what we need to do is create a policy. We're not going to use any of the predefined templates for privacy, medical and health, financial and enhanced. Within those, of course, we can use the regulatory frameworks such as HIPAA, Cyber Essentials, ISO, FedRAMP, SOC, so on and so forth. That's not applicable for what we're trying to achieve. So what we're going to select is custom, and we're going to select a custom policy where we see regulations, and we want to click next. And we need to give it a name. I'm going to call this Microsoft 365 Copilot DLP policy, as I'm really imaginative. And of course, you can give it a description, albeit it not being mandatory, but you can provide it a description for any other administrators needing to administer this DLP policy moving forward. We select next. And then it asks us to assign a scope. For this particular scope, it's asking us to assign an admin unit. An admin unit is a segmentation of particular users in a particular group, or otherwise known as an OU. From an analogy perspective, this may be I have a UK IT arm team, I have a US IT arm team, and they're managing their respective users in their geograph, and they can't manage each other's. That's an administrative unit, right? If we skip to the next page, because this is not really relevant from my perspective, we then want to define where we apply the policy. And this could be across Exchange, SharePoint, OneDrive, Teams IM, which requires extended licensing, such as Teams Premium, or Endpoint DLP, to maybe restrict copying and pasting from your local machine to maybe a third-party generative AI website. That's totally possible. However, we're going to turn off these scopes. And what we're looking for and what we're interested in is where we see Microsoft 365 Copilot brackets public preview at the bottom, which is great. So if I was to click this scope, it will ask me to define the scope of where I actually want this policy to apply. If I select edit, I can select this for, define this for individual users, Microsoft 365 security groups. I've also got an exclusion option there, so on and so forth. I'm going to leave that as is for all users and groups. If I press next, we then only have an option to create an advanced DLP rule, so we're also going to select next, and then we need to define the rule. This rule I'm going to call Rule A. We're only going to have one rule, and it's going to be called Rule A. You could have multiple rules, then you can prioritize it, just like a firewall, for example. We can also give this a description, but from a conditions perspective, what's going to satisfy this policy, if I was to select add conditions, we see it says content contains, and it's very simplistic. So if I click content contains, we can give the content contains group a name because we could have multiple conditions. However, for this one, we're only going to have one condition in one rule, and I'm going to press add and sensitivity labels. And like I said, this is highly reliant on you having sensitivity labels already predefined in information protection. From my perspective, I already have it defined, wherein which I have a highly confidential label, and then I also have a secret project sub-label, as you see on the right. Right? We're then going to press add, and these are the labels wherein which, if I label a document with highly confidential, with the sub-label secret project, Copilot won't be able to index the information or retrieve it back through the process of retrieval augmented generation and provide it back to the end user based on a prompt. Right? I then have the actions, and the actions are very important. This is where I can prevent Copilot from processing content. Right? And if I select this option, it shows a policy tip where it says, okay, currently this action is supported only for labeled files in SharePoint and OneDrive that are processed for chat experiences in Microsoft 365 Copilot. However, it's not supported when processing labeled files in non-chat Copilot experiences. For example, when we create a Word document and when we reference a particular file with a sensitivity label defined, this wouldn't work. But if we are in Microsoft Business Chat, for example, we wouldn't be able to reference the file at all. Okay, that's the current limitations around the public preview. And of course, we just need to retain this tip box for prevent Copilot from processing content. And with that, that's the job done. We save this. We select next. And then, of course, we can turn on the policy or turn off the policy. There is also a policy tip which shows in the policy mode. As you can see, it's grayed out to run the policy in simulation mode, which says at this time, simulation mode isn't supported for these locations, i.e. the Microsoft 365 scope. However, we can turn this on immediately, and kind of the end goal for this, or the output from an end user perspective, would be if they apply a label with highly confidential with a sub-label or secret project to any given document, and they try and use Microsoft Business Chat, or any type of chat capability, and then try and reference that file will then not be able to be retrieved back and shown to the end user. They wouldn't have access to it, in other words. All right. There are other ways of restricting Copilot from being kind of referenced and used. We can use sensitivity labels with encryption, where we can remove the extract usage rights permission set through the information rights management piece, and also through just general day-to-day role-based access control via SharePoint. And you've also got the restricted SharePoint search as well, which I've created videos on previously, so just look back at the videos and you can go through that. But once again, my name is Rio. I upload videos on Rio Cloud Sync. Any questions you may have, please let me know moving forward. Thank you very much.